Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about Satwiksairaj, Rankireddy, and Chirag Shetty winning at the Korea Open 2023. We also talk about Naveen Patnaik, who recently became the second longest-serving chief minister in the country. But first, we talk about Manipur. The ongoing violence in the state, which erupted on the 3rd of May between its two ethnic communities, the dominant Meiteis and the Kuki tribes, has become a major topic during the current monsoon session of the parliament. The opposition has been raising its voice and holding protests against the government over why it is not discussing the issue.
And we want a discussion here on Manipur. We want a discussion, and the Prime Minister has to open his mouth. Manipur.
In fact, yesterday the opposition alliance came together to protest Prime Minister Narendra Modi's silence on the issue and demanded his presence in the parliament.
India wants justice. India wants justice. Justice.
And as a result of these ongoing protests and sloganeering, the parliament was disrupted yesterday with both houses coming to a stalemate. Responding to this, Union Home Minister Amit Shah said that the government was prepared to hold a discussion on Manipur, but the protest by the opposition had hindered its process.
मैं सदन में चर्चा के लिए तैयार हूं। मुझे मालूम नहीं है कि विपक्ष को चर्चा करने देना नहीं चाहता। मेरा विपक्ष के नेता को आग्रह है कि चर्चा होने दे।
In the past, we have discussed how the ongoing violence in Manipur is upending the lives of people in the state. Apart from the significant loss of lives and property, women in the state have been subjected to sexual assault as well. This was made clear after a video surfaced last week showing a mob sexually assaulting and parading two naked women from the Kuki Zomi community. And this incident is what we talked about yesterday. But today we highlight another section of people who have been caught in this crossfire. These are the couples in mixed marriages living in the state. Indian Express's Deeptiman Tiwary reported about them recently. When we spoke to him, he told us about this through the story of a man named Ravinder.
So Ravinder is basically a barber who migrated from Motihari district of Bihar to Manipur some 30 years ago. And he fell in love with a Kuki woman there and got married and settled down. And he was living in the Langol area of Imphal in a rented accommodation belonging to a Meitei. So when the violence began, so he did not think that, anyone would attack him or he would be in any kind of danger because he was neither a Meitei nor a Kuki. He was an outsider. And outsiders have largely been safe there.
In fact, Ravinder's landlord, a person from the Meitei community, assured him that no one would attack their family and that they don't need to move. However, last month, while Ravinder was away from home, he received a call from security forces informing him that almost 2,000 people had surrounded his house.
So he rushed home and he saw that there was a massive crowd who was asking people to leave because they wanted to burn the house down. So obviously he was scared. He took his wife and his children out, and since there were security forces, so he was able to save them and they were taken to a relief camp. He could not understand as to why he was being targeted, but obviously because his wife was Kuki, so the crowds had come to target him. Thankfully the house was not burned down because the crowd learned that it was a Meitei house. And now Ravinder has taken his wife and his children to Jiribam, which is really far away and in the hills, and is more sort of a Kuki and Nepali dominated area. So he believes that they'll be safe there, and he has himself come back to Imphal to work as a barber again.
And what's worth noting is that Ravinder's story is not unique. Deeptiman says that the state is full of people like him who as outsiders came to Manipur, fell in love, started a family there, and who are now facing problems.
Manipur region has seen influx from mainland India for a long time, for at least 5 decades. People have been coming and staying there and making a living. Largely, they have belonged to communities such as one of the earliest migrants to those places have been Marwadis and Punjabis who have gone there for business. And later, Biharis and people from UP have gone as laborers. And in between, there has been a massive Nepali influx in the state. Lots of Nepalis live in various areas in Manipur. So Manipur has been open to migrants for a long time. And many of these migrants, although Marwadis and Punjabis for a long time have largely confined themselves to the Thangal Bazar area and have actually not really mixed with the local population. In fact, they don't even move around out of that area in Imphal. But several Marwadis and Punjabis have actually married local women, both Meitei and Kuki, and settled down in different parts of Manipur and have been living peacefully for a long, long time.
But the recent ethnic violence has ruptured that peace, pushing these families out of their homes and forcing them to move away from cities where they have worked and lived their entire lives, seeking refuge in faraway places just like Ravinder's wife had to. And of course, this predicament is not only being faced by those in these kind of mixed marriages, but also by families with members belonging to both the clashing communities, the Meiteis and the Kukis.
There have been many such examples. In fact, Meitei-Kuki marriages are not as uncommon as we see Hindu-Muslim marriages in the rest of India. Compared to that, they're fairly common, although they're not very prevalent. So there are many examples of Meitei-Kuki unions, marital unions in Manipur. And aversion to this inter-ethnic marriage is not very prominent. In fact, there was a very interesting episode that I came across, which I verified from a relief camp and from security forces. There was this couple which was rescued from Laimakhong area of Imphal. And when this couple was brought to a Meitei relief camp, so they would just not furnish their documents. So finally, people in the relief camp started talking about it as to why they're not furnishing documents, who are they, what is the problem. So finally, police was called and their documents were checked, and it was found that they had Kuki documents. So then they were interrogated and it was found that they were actually pure Meiteis, but they had actually got Kuki documents made because that would accrue them some government benefits. Okay, because, there are reservations and whatever, some other benefits also you get as a Kuki because you're a scheduled tribe. So then the security forces were, faced with a very strange predicament as to where to take them, because the Meitei relief camp would not keep them because they would suspect that their loyalties were with the Kukis, and Kukis would say that they are actually Meiteis, not Kukis. So then they had to be moved to a secret place, to a relative's house in a safe place. They are staying now. And it's a very interesting family also, because the couple has 3 daughters and 2 sons. And 4 of them are married to Kuki spouses. Only 1 is married to a pure Meitei. So it also talks about a syncretic culture in Manipur, which is being torn asunder at the moment.
Deeptiman says that these divided families do not know when they can be reunited with their loved ones again, especially considering the extent to which the bond and the trust between these two communities has broken down.
Meiteis have lived with Kukis, Kukis have lived with Meiteis. In each other's areas, strongholds, they've lived, and they've lived peacefully for so many years. In fact, there are so many tales of Meitei and Kuki camaraderie during the Kuki-Naga War, when Meiteis gave shelter to Kukis and vice versa. So it is something that the victims themselves do not understand. They do not see as to what their future is going to be. They do not know whether they will be able to settle down in their ancestral homes again. Because right now, people are thirsty for blood. There is no safety for either community in each other's areas. So people right now think that this union is never going to happen again. But time is a great healer. And as far as outsiders are concerned, so it's really painful for them because they are not part of this conflict at all. But they're forced to live separately from their families because their families are not safe. Because, you get subsumed into the identity of your spouse in such kind of conflicts when emotions are running high. So people have had to send their families miles and miles away. And their livelihood is, say, in Imphal city. Now, they don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to reunite with their family. If they're going to reunite with their family, what is going to be their livelihood? What are they going to work for? Some of them are actually employed with the government. So it's all in a flux at the moment.
And next we talk about badminton. On Sunday, badminton players Satwiksairaj, Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty made history after they won the Korea Open 2023 by defeating the world number 1 Indonesian duo Fajar Alfian and Muhammad Rian Ardianto in a thrilling 3-game men's doubles final.
They've done it here. Delight for India. And they're pairing here their third title of 2023 to go with the Indonesian Open and the Swiss Open.
Now, the Indians had lost the opening game 17-21, but made a remarkable comeback to finally win the title in the end. In this segment, joining us is Indian Express's Shivani Naik, who writes on badminton for the paper. Shivani, for those who might not be familiar with the Korean Open, could you talk about how big of a deal is it for this Indian duo to win it?
So it's a Super 500, which isn't necessarily the biggest of the tournaments. But if you look at the draws, they ended up playing the world number 5 in the quarterfinals. They played world number 2 in the semis and the world number 1s in the finals. So it was a pretty tough field for them to negotiate, and they came through spectacularly.
And defeating the world number 1 and number 2, what does this moment mean for these two players?
It's important because, they hadn't really beaten the world number 2s previously. They had 2 losses against them. And it's important before they head into the Asian Games or the World Championships that you get a win against every pair that there is. Psychologically, it makes a huge difference to know that you have beaten a pair. Now, they did that against the world champions from Malaysia at the Indonesian Open last month. After about 6 to 8 losses, they actually ended up reversing the scoreline in the Indonesian Open final. So similarly, it was important at Korea to defeat the Chinese because if you haven't beaten them before, it plays on your mind and it grows into a sort of a demon. And that has happened with them, certain other pairings previously. So now they're ticking off boxes, and beating the Chinese in the semi-finals was one of those.
And talking about their rise, it has not come out of the blue, right? The two had lost the French Open finals back in 2019. Talk about what their performance has been like since then.
Right. What has been significant is that their rise has been very steady. It's not a flash in the pan. It's not something that is suddenly sort of erupted. They have been kind of chipping away at pairings. They have been defeating pairings and reaching finals. They've been consistently reaching the quarters and semis of tournaments. And that is important because then you know that the graph is sort of steady and it is headed upwards. They are peaking towards something that is a very, very important year now. There are the Asian Games and there is a World Championship coming up. There is also the Paris Olympics next year. So it's been a steady sort of growth and they've gotten the results in a very, very steady fashion.
And Shivani, could you tell our listeners a bit about Satvik and Chirag themselves? Which part of India are they from and when did they begin their badminton career?
So they both started as preteens. Satvik in Amlapuram in Andhra Pradesh and Chirag Shetty is basically from Mumbai. And they both started out at local clubs and ended up at the national camp as promising doubles players. I think they committed to doubles pretty early. That was very, very important. India, as you know, is predominantly a singles playing nation. We didn't really have great results in doubles previously. So for a pair of teenagers or preteens to kind of, commit to playing doubles, and they were paired with different pairings earlier, and those pairings were broken and their games sort of complemented each other, so which is why they were brought together. And they've been playing since, I think, 2016 now together.
And Shivani, what would you say makes them stand out from others in the field? The fact that they have managed to defeat the world number 1 and world number 2 and win this title.
They're very, very fearless. They really don't fear any pairing. They literally stand out because they're tall. They're extremely powerful. They have a great explosive strength. They both are attacking players and they can rotate really well. Both can play at the net, both can play from the backcourt. They're extremely versatile and they both attack. So I think the attack has been absolutely blazing attack. Satvik recently had a world record for the fastest smash, and Chirag is not really far behind. He has a very, very steep, fast smash too.
And there is also something to be said about the fact that they managed to win in the finals, right? That they have the right temperament to be able to do that.
No, absolutely. The temperament has been phenomenal. Since the 2019 French Open loss, they have gone on to win in France, they've won in Thailand, they won in Indonesia, they won the Swiss Open, they won the Asian Championships. And making the finals is one thing. They've had a few pitfalls in semi-finals over the last season. But once they reach the finals, they've gone on to win it every single time. And that is spectacular.
And you mentioned that they now have the Asian Games and the World Championships coming up. And India has never really won a gold in these tournaments. Talk about the challenges that lie ahead for them in the lead up to these games.
The Asian Games is considered extremely prestigious by countries like China, Japan, and Indonesia in badminton. And they prepare for it as much as they would for an Olympics, for example. And India has never won an Asian Games gold. So badminton is one of those sports which is very, very strong at the Asian Games. And I think Sindhu made the finals to Indonesia, Jakarta in 2018. She has a silver, but that's our best performance at the Asian Games. And at the World Championships also, India doesn't have a world champion in the men's section. Sindhu, of course, won it in 2019. But it's incredibly tough to medal at the Worlds, of course. Even if they happen annually, they happen every year. But the Asian Games, which happen every 4 years, it's a stomping ground for China and Indonesia in badminton. And it'll be similarly difficult this time as well.
And next we talk about Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik. On Sunday, the 76-year-old Patnaik achieved the distinction of becoming the second longest serving Chief Minister in the country's history. A title which was previously held by the late CPIM leader and former West Bengal Chief Minister Jyoti Basu. Currently, he trails only behind Pawan Kumar Chamling, who served as the Chief Minister of Sikkim for more than 24 years. Patnaik began his political journey in 1997, and over the years, he has successfully built a loyal voter base which has re-elected him to power every year since 2000. However, before embarking on this remarkable political journey, Patnaik was relatively unknown in the country's political circles. When we spoke to Indian Express's Sujit Bisoyi, he told us that before he joined politics, Patnaik was someone who was more interested in social events and parties.
Naveen Patnaik joined politics only when he turned 51. Before that, he was known as a socialite in Delhi circle. He used to travel a lot of countries. He was a writer. Even he played a small part in one English movie. So he was a regular in Delhi's party circles, basically.
And Sujit explains that the reason that Patnaik stayed away from politics for a considerable period was because of his father, Biju Patnaik, a legendary leader in Odisha who did not want his family members to be involved in politics at all. In fact, Naveen Patnaik joined politics only after the passing away of his father and after being convinced by his siblings.
After the demise of Biju Patnaik, there was a huge political vacuum in Odisha. And the Biju loyalists, keeping in mind or considering the popularity enjoyed by the late leader, they tried to bring someone from Biju's family to lead the party or to spearhead the Janata Dal in Odisha, because Biju Patnaik was associated with the Janata Dal. So in that way, Naveen's elder brother Prem Patnaik, he's an industrialist in Delhi, so he had showed no interest according to those who was associated at that time in this power tussle. And Geeta Mehta, she's a well-known writer, she had also shown no interest to join politics. So they finally persuaded Naveen Patnaik to take the lead.
Now, Naveen Patnaik, as we mentioned earlier, started his political journey in 1997. When he was 51 years old. And he did this by contesting a by-election from his father's constituency on a Janata Dal ticket. And although Patnaik won this election, within 6 months, he left the party along with his father's loyalists and started a new party called the Biju Janata Dal.
They named it after Biju Patnaik. And the sole reason that floating the new party at that moment was to fight for the aspirations of Odisha. I mean, to make it a regional party that would show more concern for Odisha.
In the beginning, Patnaik had his fair share of critics. People who thought he would not survive Odisha's political landscape because he did not know Odia, which is the predominant language in the state, and he did not have any political experience. However, Patnaik proved these critics wrong in the end. Since March 2000, the BJD has emerged victorious in all the state assembly elections, granting Patnaik an uninterrupted tenure as the chief minister for 5 consecutive terms. And Sujit says that this success can be attributed to Patnaik's ability to build a loyal voter base in the state through the effective implementation of multiple welfare schemes.
He is a calculated politician. Naveen Patnaik strategically launched schemes to make some loyal voter base. Like, if we give one example, in 2001, just a year after assuming the charge, he initiated one scheme called Mission Shakti. And under that, at this moment, in this year, around 70 lakh rural women have been organized, part of 6 lakh women self-help group. And these 70 lakh rural women are known to be the loyal support base, loyal voters of Naveen Patnaik government.
In fact, over the years, Patnaik launched many more welfare schemes for various sections of the population in Odisha's villages, including the elderly, widows, pregnant women, and lactating mothers, all of which has earned him immense popularity.
And the other part is the image of Naveen Patnaik. His humility and simplicity, he just won hard. I mean, people in Odisha have a different respect for Naveen Patnaik. He hardly speaks, against any leaders. He maintains dignity in public life. So he wears always kurta pajama politician is known as. Even as he doesn't know Odia, he hardly understands Odia. People have another level of respect for him. So being Naveen Patnaik is the only factor.
Sujit mentions that besides these accomplishments, Patnaik has also managed to build a robust organization, propelling Biju Janata Dal to become one of India's most successful regional forces. For example, under Patnaik's leadership, the party stood firm amidst the Narendra Modi wave in 2014, successfully retaining power in Odisha, setting Patnaik apart as one of the few regional leaders who were able to do so. Now, while Patnaik's political journey has been extraordinary, the future leadership of the Biju Janata Dal remains uncertain, especially with another assembly election on the horizon. And this uncertainty stems from the party's inability to cultivate a second-rung leadership who could take charge after Patnaik. However, Sujit explains that this strategy was first adopted by the party to ensure that there are no detractors within the organization.
Everyone is asking now who after Naveen Patnaik, because Naveen is already 76. So that's a definite question is being asked by everyone, that who will be after Naveen. And it's true that Naveen Patnaik has failed to grow any second-rung leader, but according to party inside, that's a well thought out strategy, because unlike other parties, you can see in Shiv Sena, Shinde challenged Uddhav Thackeray, and similarly Ajit Pawar challenged his uncle Sharad Pawar. But in Odisha, no one now can challenge Naveen Patnaik. No one can survive by challenging Naveen Patnaik. So in that way, it's a strategy of the party, we can say, that they didn't promote any second-rung leader.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.